Hey, Falcons and NFL fans. Welcome to another episode of NFL Jocks and Pigskins. With Tom Pollen, I'm Dave Holcomb. Chris Smitherman is not able to be with us today, but he's with us in spirit, always producing behind the scenes. Even when he's not here, he's helping during the week. And we got a great week one recap show for you. Week two, as we look ahead in the NFL. And it was a really exciting first 17 games, counting Thursday night's game between the Chargers and Chiefs. And I was with my sister in week one, and she's not a football fan. So, she's the black cat of the family. She's the only one that doesn't like football. My mom loves football.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly.
And my sister, it just didn't take. I don't know. So, But I'm watching the week. We were watching the Texans and Colts live. I was watching it with her, and that game, of course, was 17-point comeback for the Colts, and then overtime ended in a tie. And then we're watching the Steelers game on the scoreboard, and that one almost ends in a tie. And I just turned to her and like, how do you not love the NFL? It's just dramatic week in, week out. It's unbelievable how great it is. And it didn't have to take any time into the 2022 season, at least for me, to be reminded how much I love the NFL because there was just such great games and storylines coming out of week one and as we look ahead to week two.
Yeah, a lot of storylines. Didn't do much for my predictions last week. I had a bad week as far as my football picks, but yeah, exciting week. Some things I didn't expect to see last week. Some interesting outcomes that Colts Texans game 2020, and the Colts played terrible.
Yeah,
they played terrible against a team that they had beaten 63-3 in 2 games in 2021.
Yeah.
So that's just awful, the way that the Colts played. And I expected more with Matt Ryan at the controls than what we got with the Colts. So that was a surprise. The Browns barely beating the Panthers last week. Bears played the San Francisco 49ers in what I'm seeing a lot of people describing as monsoon conditions. I'm telling you, I was about to go throw a couple of lures out in the backyard after the game was over. My backyard was a lake. So
I believe it. I mean, I was watching that game this morning on NFL Plus, and especially the last 4 minutes, the announcer, Joe Davis, I think, said it seems like the Cubs and White Sox have brought in their closer, and the closer is the rain. With how much it was pouring at the end of that game, and kind of preventing the 49ers from making any kind of comeback attempt.
Well, the thing is, and what good thing the Bears did is they actually changed their turf the week before the game. Matt Eberflus said, "Hey, we always play on Bermuda grass, and it doesn't tear up. It doesn't get muddied up a lot like the Kentucky bluegrass that the Bears were using." And it turned out he was right, because that field stayed in great condition. The problem is when they installed the field, I think they forgot drainage. It was a lake before the game started.
Yeah. Opening kickoff, you could see all of the running down the field, and basically the guys jumping in puddles trying to run down the field to cover the kick.
It's a natural grass field, and they were using squeegees to try and clear the water from the field before the game.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable.
And the craziest award for the superlative for craziest penalty in week one was the holder for the Bears.
Yes,
trying to put the towel down on the turf to.
Well, he was just trying to dry the turf a little bit. Yeah,
for a field goal attempt. And
then he tossed the towel away.
Apparently, that's against the rules.
That's against the rules. You can have a snow blowing machine kind of drive over the point where you're going to attempt a field goal from, but you cannot use a towel to help dry the field for your field goal kicker.
Who
So,
knew?
yeah, who knew? I know. So it was fun. But yeah, there was a lot of fun stuff last week. As I say, wreaked havoc with my picks. But Jaguars looked fairly good against the Commanders, or the team formerly known as the football team.
The former football.
I've been going as the team formerly known as the football team. It's kind of fun, makes a little bit of a play on what they've done, but it was nice to see Ron Rivera get a win in the opening game of the season. I'm a big Rivera fan. Right now, I think he's the one spot of class you can actually look at in that Washington organization and say, this is a guy who's actually worthwhile. He's straight up with you. He's a good guy. I really like Ron Rivera, and I was happy to see him get his success against a very tough Jaguars team.
Yeah.
Urban Meyer, they've kind of blown out all the Urban Meyer garbage. And Doug Peterson's done a good job of getting that team back on focus on football. Yeah. So you like to see that.
I agree. Yeah, I think Doug Peterson, only one game, but looking like a very good hire for that organization.
Yeah, definitely. Because they got a lot to make up for after that year one debacle.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just...
Only 1 year debacle.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I give Jacksonville credit for not letting that go on longer than it had to, but I give them a lot of, condemn them for the fact that they even made that move in the first place, especially with a rookie quarterback coming in. That was just terrible.
I wasn't expecting to bring up my sister twice on the show, but also last week, I think somehow the Jaguars came up in conversation and we're talking about Urban Meyer not being there anymore. And she didn't know anything about what Urban Meyer had done with Jacksonville. So I was like, how much time do you have for me to explain how big of a mess Urban Meyer was? And I just told her the bar scene with, him getting caught on video with the young lady when he was supposed to be with his grandkids. And she was convinced after that story.
Oh, it was hilarious. So, yeah, a lot of great things. A lot of comebacks that fell short. A lot of comebacks that made it. A lot of exciting games a lot of things happened that we didn't expect. Dak Prescott got hurt again. Just terrible. You feel bad for the guy, but you got to wonder, is he the man for Dallas now after, 2 major injuries in a matter of 3 seasons? So it's rough to see there. Brian Dable made a great, not a great debut as head coach, but kept his team in the game against the Tennessee Titans and kind of, played to his strengths, played to what his team could do, leaned on Saquon Barkley quite a bit in the running game. And in the final seconds, losing 20-19, decided to go for 2, and his team made it. So the Giants are feeling very good about themselves this week.
I was going to bring up Brian Dable in one of our segments coming up.
Yeah.
I was very impressed with him in that decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes I hate that decision sometimes, though. I really do. Because to me, sometimes it's more a matter of kick the point and then go get them in overtime. Because your team is hot right now. So go ahead and take the extra period and take the extra football because, you don't know if you're going to get that 2-point conversion or not. But
I'm gonna save it for our segment, and
okay.
I'll let you have the last word here. But I'm gonna disagree, and I'll bring that up in a little bit. Why I really loved in this situation. I agree with you. You can't go for 2 and all the time in that spot. The Ravens did it a lot last year and didn't work, and it cost them a couple times. At least cost them not to have a chance to win in overtime. But
yeah.
But I liked the Giants going for it in that situation.
Okay.
Um,
What were you impressed with over the weekend? Over week one, what really caught your eye?
I would say the Chiefs. You know, the more things change, the more they stay the same. And we've seen the Chiefs play a second time now.
Yeah.
So they're the first 2-0 team in the NFL. They weren't quite as impressive on Thursday night, at least offensively. But they were going up against a Charger defense that a lot of people think are going to be a top 5 defense. So
Right.
I don't think there's any issue. I don't have any issue with, the Chiefs winning a little bit uglier than normal this year. But week one was anything but ugly. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, 5 touchdowns.
God,
And of all the teams that lost the top wide receiver, right? I mean, Aaron Rodgers lost Devontae Adams. Cowboys lost Amari Cooper, not in the same class as a top wide receiver. But the Cowboys didn't look the same without Cooper and some of their other wideouts. The Packers didn't look the same. There's a couple other. Help me out. What other? The Titans
did not look good.
Titans didn't look the same. They didn't have I know AJ Brown didn't play a lot last year, but they didn't have AJ Brown. Julio Jones is gone there too, and they didn't look the same offensively. Right. But the Chiefs lost Tyreek Hill, and they look just as dangerous. And I think
that's the thing, right?
Maybe they have Patrick Mahomes, who makes up for a lot, but they also have Travis Kelce and Andy Reid. And Andy Reid really impressed me with they played more than 50% of their snaps, the Chiefs did, with multiple tight ends. And that was a thing they didn't do a lot of last year. But they have these tight ends with Travis Kelce leading the way that they think can be pass catchers that collectively replace Tyreek Hill. And when you have tight ends on the field that you're worried about in going down the field on you, those guys can also run block. And I think the Chiefs are going to be a lot better running the ball with Edwards-Helaire and their rookie from Rutgers, who had a pretty good game, I think, against the Chargers. So I think the Chiefs definitely are adjusting early on anyway, the best to a salary cap casualty. Some of these other teams, Packers, Cowboys, Titans, not so much. I mean, they're going to be on they're in our group of teams that were in the playoffs last year and lost. And are we concerned already about them?
Yeah, a couple of them, and I know we'll get to that in a little bit, but a couple of them I am concerned about. And as I say, I know we have a segment coming up where we're going to talk about that, unless you want to do it now.
Well, I figured we would start with the Falcons. I know we're already 10 minutes into the show, but do you want to go with the Falcons first?
Why not? Let's do it.
Okay. For a few comments first to get to. Thank you very much, Traveling Charlie.
Really appreciate it.
We dig bringing our show to you every week, and we're really excited. I mean, not that we don't do our best to bring good shows during the off season, but there's just so many storylines during the season, and I try to watch as many games as possible myself on NFL Plus, and I'll have a early NFL Plus review maybe today as well.
Okay, good.
So it's really exciting to hear you guys like it, because we like bringing it to you during the season, especially.
We love doing this. So, I mean, we really do enjoy doing this every Saturday morning, or Saturday afternoon for you.
Right. So, I wasn't going to correct you, and then William has a nice transition to the Falcons when he says we. I think he means the Falcons. We got to run the ball and stay disciplined on defense. I really was, I guess, to answer your question, the last one you just asked, who were you impressed with? You know what? Through 3 quarters, I was pretty impressed with the Atlanta Falcons. They looked
so was I.
Really good. Like Marcus Mariota, it was like best case scenario for him through three quarters. He was running the offense well, completing passes down the field, not a lot downfield, some inaccuracy issues, but overall, I mean, he was moving the offense. Cordell Patterson had 120 yards rushing.
Yeah, sure did.
Mariota was keeping the defense honest by moving the pocket and running, and it just looked like Mariota.
Yards rushing from Mariota.
Yeah, it looked like Mariota was a better fit for what Arthur Smith wants to do on offense than Matt Ryan, and that's no indictment on Matt Ryan. I think he's a better quarterback than Mariota. But if
100% more, yeah.
100% more. But if you are trying to run a certain offense like Arthur Smith is, I think Mariota fits that peg much better. And the defense was putting pressure on Jameis Winston. They were making him very uncomfortable. Other than a couple long runs from Taysom Hill, the defense looked good. And it was the best pass rush they had in years. But then, I mean, it was the same old Falcons after that.
It came to the fourth quarter. You know, you're 2 scores up. For crying out loud, you're 2 scores up and you can't finish. And the Saints had to drive the distance of the field all 3 times. Those were not short drives. Those were not drives where they got a turnover and in positive field position.
Yeah.
The Falcons, they drove on that Falcons defense and took it all the way down 3 times in the fourth quarter. You can't allow that. That's just unbelievable. When I saw that the Falcons lost that game, I nearly blew a gasket. I'm looking at the Falcons score because I'm watching the Bears. I'm looking at the Falcons score. I'm thinking they're doing pretty damn good. They're looking great today.
I had the same reaction watching the Colts. I was like, wow, the Falcons are winning. Falcons are ahead by 16 points, fourth quarter. Our audience was right. They're going to be a lot better this year. This was my immediate reaction.
Right. Same here. That's kind of what I thought. And as I said, I saw the final score and I just couldn't believe it. And I caught up with the game later on that evening. And it's just, it's just, facepalm kind of situation where you just unbelievable that they were able to not just let the Saints back in the game, but let the Saints come all the way back and win.
I think there's the big thing that I really disliked about the loss, although I think we can be critical of the defense, we already have been. I thought the defense could have been a little bit more aggressive, continuing to pressure and blitz Winston, which I don't think they blitzed as often in the fourth quarter. I didn't get to go back and look at the fourth quarter a second time, but I think if I would have found there were a lot more 4-man rushes in the fourth quarter than the first quarter when they were getting more pressure on Winston, which I think they need to be more aggressive in that situation on defense. However, the decision not to go for fourth down on 4th and 1, I'm going to pull up the exact situation. It was 4th and 1 at the Saints 42-yard line. With 1:40 left in the game, the Saints had no timeouts. If the Falcons gain a yard, they win.
Right.
They don't have to play defense again.
Nope.
And Arthur Smith elects to take a 5-yard penalty and for the delay of game to give his punter a little bit more room, and then they punt. And I mean, they did pin the Saints back, and they didn't have any timeouts, but right away on the first play of from that next drive for the Saints, they gained 40 yards on a pass to Jarvis Landry. So I really did not like the passiveness from Arthur Smith and the offense in that decision.
No, and it comes down to playing not to lose instead of playing to win. You play not to lose. It's going to come back to bite you if you start going conservative. And I get sick of coaches, playing 3 quarters with a strategy that is winning you the game easily. And then all of a sudden going into their shell and deciding that, we got this game. Let's just run out the clock and you still got that other team is still trying to come back. You still got to do something to stop them. You can't just sit back on your heels and hope you can run out the clock in time and that you have enough points to win the game. I hate that out of coaches. And Smith did that. And, it's very frustrating when you're doing everything right and all of a sudden you stop doing what you were doing right.
I went to the Braves game last night with Corey Knapp, who's another host on Atlanta Sports Unlimited. He covers the Atlanta United. And we were talking about the Falcons. And he said that the Falcons have nothing to lose by going for that 4th and 1. And I think he's coming from the idea of no one expects them to be good, and they're probably not going to be good. Why not roll the dice and try to win the game right there? When beforehand, this was a game that most people thought you were going to lose anyway. I think the problem with that take, I guess, is Arthur Smith is not thinking that way. Arthur Smith thinks this is a playoff team. And I think Arthur Smith should take a step back and say, we are rebuilding. This goes back to what we've been talking about for more than a year. The Falcons do not want to admit that they are rebuilding. And when you are rebuilding, you're trying to establish a culture. We've heard that from Arthur Smith.
Yes.
What does that establish when in week 1 you have a chance to win by converting a 4th and 1? You have a running quarterback. You have a running back who's averaging 5 yards per carry in this game, but you don't have confidence in them gaining a yard to just end the game right there. That, to me, I think says a lot more than, the confidence that he had in the defense by trying to pin them back.
Right. I agree.
You have nothing to lose by trying to go for that 4th and 1 and just winning the game right there. And that's why I liked the Brian Daboll decision. I think Brian Daboll realizes that this most people think we're a 3 or 4 win team.
Yeah.
And we were a 3 and 4 win team last year. And we're playing a playoff team that on the road that we're not supposed to beat. Let's try and win the game right here. And it may be a little bit different because the 2-point conversion didn't clinch the win. The 4th down conversion would have clinched the win for the Falcons, which is just more of a reason why Smith should have gone for it, I think.
Exactly.
But I that's why totally opposite, mindsets there. That I love the Daboll going for it, establishing that confidence in his offense. That hey, you guys can. I'm going to have faith in you guys in key situations. Arthur Smith doesn't have that faith apparently.
And I'm telling you right now, there isn't a New York Giants player who wouldn't run through a brick wall for Brian Daboll at this point. Right now. I can't say that about Falcons players because I think, you're not showing faith in your offense. You're not showing faith, again, on defense and offense. You're not showing faith in what you were successful at doing for 3 quarters. And that's what gets me is you don't have enough faith in your team to play the 4th quarter the way they played the first 3. And that's why I hate it when coaches go into the shell. You go into a shell, you're going to lose. Most of the time you're going to lose. And talking about 4th and 1, I was doing other research over the weekend because I was researching the 4th and 5 Denver Broncos play.
Yeah.
And one of the things I found that was kind of interesting, going back, Pro Football Reference has stats going back to 1994 on 4th down plays. And 4th and between 4th and 4 to 6 yards, which is where the Broncos had found themselves, that's successful about 18% of the time, going back to 1994. 4th and 1 to 3 is successful 85% of the time. So it's a very high percentage play to go ahead and take that 4th and 1 situation and try and convert it. And like you say, Mariota was running well. You could give the ball to Cordero Patterson because he's strong and he's fast. And I say your odds are better at ending the game right there than giving the Saints another shot at it. And then, it just turned into a disaster.
Yeah. Cordero Patterson averaged 5.5 yards per carry. Mariota had 6 yards per carry in the game. So as a team, the Falcons were averaging 5.3 yards per rush. The only reason why 3rd and 1 didn't work was Mariota dropped the snap.
Yes.
So unless you think that's happening 2 times in a row, I don't know why you don't go for 4th.
No, you go for it.
Pantera disagrees with us.
I know he does.
Smith made the right call punting. If the Falcons had not gotten the 1st down, then they only needed 20 yards for the 3 points. It's true. But I think the odds are that they would have converted. Is
So
the
do I.
argument I would have
And
made.
Pantera, they got the field goal anyway.
It's true.
So
It's true.
they got the field goal anyway. They had to drive farther for it, but they still got it.
Williams says we need to play more. We need to play more aggressive in this game coming up against the Rams. Yeah, I think so, and that's kind of my takeaway point is more aggressive play calling when the game is on the line from Arthur Smith, and don't go into that shell if you get a lead against the Rams on defense. Continue to pressure Matthew Stafford and the Rams. So,
and in week 1, the Rams showed they're vulnerable. Matthew Stafford played. It was the Detroit Lions Matthew Stafford, not the LA Rams world champion Matthew Stafford. So you got, are we going to see Matthew Stafford, who just, insane that he keeps going to Cooper Kupp. I mean, he keeps looking for Cooper Kupp, and it's like the same love affair Aaron Rodgers had with Devontae Adams. It's just, you really want to keep focusing on this one receiver. You got a lot of other weapons around you on offense. So, I mean, the Rams have a tough defense. You're going to have a problem moving the ball. You're going to have a problem running. It's going to be harder to run the ball. It's going to be harder to pass the ball. You're going to see an actual pass rush this week, a tough pass rush this week. And, yeah, they got to be aggressive. They can't go into their shell and say, well, this is a tough team. We got to play close to the vest. No, you got to go on and be aggressive against these guys. Play your top ball against these guys. Use all your weapons. I know one of the things that disappointed me was Kyle Pitts really didn't get a lot of targets. Drake London played well, but Kyle Pitts really didn't give a lot of production in this game.
Yeah. Well, I think you're going to have that a lot of the season until teams start respecting Drake London and some of the other receivers. They're going to just Pitts is going to draw double, triple coverage until the Falcons prove that they can beat you in other ways in the passing game.
Right. Now, they were successful at that in week 1 with Drake London. I mean, London did have a big game.
Drake London was the best rookie receiver in week 1, which is really encouraging. I know he should be because he was the first receiver taken, but there were a lot of receivers taken in the first round, a lot in the first 2 rounds. And honestly, I didn't see Drake London mentioned as a favorite to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. There were a lot of other rookie receivers, I think, going into week 1 that were kind of thought that they were going to have better first years. But after 1 week, Drake London gets an A. Yeah,
well, give it time. I mean, it's just week 1. I mean,
it's 1 game, but it's a great first game for Drake London. That's definitely a positive.
Gary Holcomb has a nice comment here. If you want to call that up.
Yeah.
What's weird about not going 4th and 1 is that Smith is an offensive guy who earned his rep as OC with the run-heavy Titans. Not going for it, and this is the point where I really agree with Gary, not going for it has to be very demotivating for Falcons offensive players. And I agree. Just as I said, Brian Dable has a team that's willing to run through a brick wall for him right now.
Yeah.
You got a head coach who basically gave up on his players, gave up on his offense. And I know you're saying, well, I'm going to put this on my defense to finish the game. But your defense just gave up another 2 long drives to put the Saints close. I know the Saints didn't have a timeout, but finish the game. End it. Put your foot on their throat and end the game. That's what you got to do. That's how you win in the NFL. You sometimes you've just got to put the foot down on the throat of your opponent and say, you are done for this day.
I like it. That's a good way to end. But I do want to talk a little bit more about Arthur Smith, going back to a comment from Traveling Charlie. He liked the fact that Arthur Smith got fired up in the post-game press conference, going off on the media, counting them dead already. I'm guessing, Charlie, maybe you didn't see the question that led to Arthur Smith going off, or maybe you just don't like the media. I don't know. And maybe I'm going to side with the media here because I'm in the media. I don't always do that, though. I usually criticize the media when it's fair to criticize them. But it was a very fair question that Smith got asked where he blew up at. And the question, I believe, was, what is your team going to learn from this loss?
Right.
Very fair question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're a team that's rebuilding, even if the Falcons don't want to admit it. You're a team that's trying to build a culture, trying to build a winner in Atlanta. So if you're not going to win a game like this, you got to at least learn something that's going to help you down the road. What are you going to learn, Arthur Smith? And Arthur Smith's response.
Well, that's the thing.
I don't have it in front of me right here. Arthur Smith's response was, "You guys wrote our obituary back in May. You'll continue to write our obituary. Who cares?" Are you saying who cares about what you learned from this game? The question had nothing to do with the media and how the team is being perceived outside of the locker room.
Right.
And he immediately jumped to that like a very defenseless 10-year-old.
Yes.
So I did not like that response. I did not like him not taking accountability for his decision not to go on fourth down. No accountability for blowing yet another fourth quarter double-digit lead. I am very concerned about this response from Arthur Smith. Very concerned.
Well, so am I. Because for one thing, the media wasn't on the field to stop the Saints on that last drive. The media did not force you to punt on fourth down. But again, they're just asking, what did you learn? They're not being critical.
Yeah.
They're just saying, what did you learn? Guess what? The fans cannot ask, what did you learn? All right. The fans cannot ask these questions because they're not there. They're not talking to Arthur Smith. That's what the media is there for. To ask the questions, to give the fans some insight that they want to know, that they need to know about this Falcons team. And it sounded like Arthur Smith just didn't have a reply, didn't have an idea. You're coming off as very petulant. You just thought, I'll take my ball and go home. Well, they weren't being mean. And
yeah, I know. I am laughing because I agree with you. William agrees with us. He says, Arthur Smith, please get it together.
Yeah.
Pantera disagrees with us. He says Smith's answer was awesome. Media did write Atlanta off. But, the crazy thing about it, Pantera, is if he wants to change what the media is writing about him, win this game.
Win the game.
Win this game. Beat your rival in week one at home. Everything that would have been written about the Falcons this week if they had won this game would have been great. Would have been great. And I think some media people, myself included, would have said, maybe we're wrong about Arthur Smith and the Falcons. Yeah. But they lost. So you can't be mad at the media for criticizing you after a loss when they didn't have anything, as you already said. They didn't have anything to do with the loss.
Right. And the hell of it is, they weren't criticizing him. They weren't criticizing him. They were just they were asking a question that was a fair question. As a media member, that is a fair question because that's what your fans want to know. That's what you need to write. You can't write about a victory, but you can write about what did you feel was a victory in this game? What did you feel was, what did you learn about maybe how you would do this in the future, how you would handle that situation? That's all they want to know because the fans want to know that.
Yeah.
And that's what the media is doing. They're bringing the fans' perspective. They want to give the fans an idea of what the coach and players think after the game. Well, don't use that as an excuse to blow up against the press because they wrote you off in March or May. A lot of teams are getting written off in May. A couple of them won. Some of them lost. You always have to wait and see. But the media, they're always being honest too. I mean, sometimes that's just the way they see it. And they're just trying to get you to react to this game. They're not talking about what happened in May. They want you to react to this game because the fans need to know.
The media was there before Arthur Smith got his head coaching job. They're going to be there after Arthur Smith.
Right.
leaves or is fired in Atlanta. If he wants to change, the media will always be there. If he wants to change the narrative around in the media about his team, the way to do it is not to go off like this in a press conference.
And
the
win a
way
game.
to do it is to win.
Right.
Win the game, put together a winning season. That will change the narrative around this team in the media.
Exactly. You got it.
We got a lot of other things that we want to get to. Let's get to what I loved and loathed in week 1. We kind of got to some of those topics. I loved Brian Daboll going for the 2-point conversion. We talked about why and that situation. I loathed the Arthur Smith decision in 4th down. Another coach that played not to lose, although he didn't lose, he tied. Lovie Smith.
Yes.
Punting with about a minute to go in overtime on 4th and 3. A little bit more understandable than the Arthur Smith situation, because on 3rd and 1, they lost 3 yards, went backwards.
But I have more faith in Marcus Mariota picking up a 4th and 3, let alone a 4th and 1. I have more faith in Marcus Mariota than Davis Mills of being successful on a 4th down.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That I think the Smith decision should have been a no-brainer. Go for it. It was a little harder decision for Lovie Smith because he doesn't have a running quarterback, and it was a 4th and 3, not 4th and 1. And on 3rd and 1, they lost 2 yards. So it was a little bit harder choice. But again, you're a team that should be playing with house money, being tied 20-20 in overtime at home in week 1. You're coaching your first game with the Texans. Don't you want to tell your offense that I think you can get 4th and 3 and we can get 10 more yards and attempt a field goal? I mean, there were a lot of missed field goals in overtime in week 1, so no guarantee they make it, but don't you want to at least go for the win rather than settling for a tie? The punt automatically meant the game was ending in a tie.
Yes, it did. It did. I mean, you've taken it down to the wire against a team that was vastly superior to yours. The Colts are just 100% better than what the Texans have on the field right now. And you actually took them into overtime. And they had to come back to take you into overtime.
You were up 20-3.
But Lovie Smith is not an offensive-minded coach.
No. Yeah,
he's a defensive-minded coach, and I've saw that for years here in Chicago, where he would frustrate the hell out of you.
It works in 2006 when you have the 2006 Bears defense, and the rules are set up more for defense. And it's just we've gotten to an era in the NFL where you just cannot sit on a lead. There are no safe leads in this league. You have to remain aggressive on offense.
I think that's what we're learning the last 2 years, because this was the same thing last year. No lead is safe. You've really got to keep piling this on. You can't just go into a shell and figure you're going to come out on top, because odds are, no, you're not. So, but I've been hammering that home all day. So, I know I'm repeating myself.
So I think I already talked about, because you asked me the question off the top of the show about what stuck out to me in week 1. I brought up the Chiefs and their double, triple tight end sets. We did Brian Daboll, and then the 2 coaching decisions to punt from Smith and Smith, Arthur Smith and Lovie Smith. So that was what I loved and loathed. I guess this is maybe a good time to give my NFL Plus review. B- after week 1. They have all the commercials cut from every game, which is great. You can watch a full game in hour and 50 to 2:10, unless it's a full overtime game like the Colts and Steelers games were like 2.5 hours with no commercials. But that's really nice. But some editing issues in the Packers-Vikings game, the first 10 minutes of the game is missing. Just flat out not there.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Because I didn't look at that game, because that was fairly, the Vikings pretty much had their way against the Packers last week.
They did. And I mean, if you want to watch any of that game, it's probably the beginning of it. And that's not there on the NFL Plus. I tried to watch the condensed game. It's there, kind of there. Let's see if I can explain this. The regular game started at like the 7-minute mark in the first quarter. You just turn it on and there's 7 minutes left in the first quarter.
Yeah.
You turn the condensed game on, there's 12 minutes left in the first quarter. But then around like the 8-minute mark of the first quarter, the next play comes at the 5-minute mark of the first quarter.
Really?
Yeah. It skipped ahead about 3 minutes and you miss a drive. So I ended up watching the coach's film for the first like 10 minutes of the game. Then I watched the rest of the game just on the full replay because the full replay was just missing. And I think the other big issue I'd have with NFL Plus, I used it Thursday night. I don't have Amazon, which we could spend a whole hour talking about the Thursday night broadcast.
Oh my God, yes, we could.
Because a lot of our viewers, when we brought up this in the offseason, all our viewers had Amazon and said that we were making too big of a deal of this. And granted, our viewers, not a huge sample size.
Right.
Because, but it seemed like to me after talking to them, okay, I guess everybody's on board with the NFL going non-streaming. Well, everyone who wasn't on board with the NFL going to a streaming only Thursday night package came out of the woodwork this week. And I guess maybe they were just finding out about this. They turned the Fox on Thursday night and they're like, I want to watch Chiefs and Chargers and it's Pirates Mets. I don't want to watch Pirates Mets. Why? Where's the Chiefs and Chargers?
Right.
So I don't have Amazon Prime. I was watching on NFL.
Where do I? I was watching on NFL Plus.
So I tried to turn the NFL Plus feed on at 8:15. I want to watch the very beginning of the game. Yeah. The game doesn't appear until like, I don't know. I have to refresh my app several times. I didn't get in the game until 8:20, and usually there's a lag online anyway. Right. And maybe if the kickoff is until 8:17.
Oh, you're a minute behind. You're at least a minute behind on any streaming.
Right. So I thought, okay, it's just not available yet. There's a lag, and then maybe the game started a minute or two late. Well, I turn it on at 8:20, and there's like 10 minutes left in the first quarter. I missed the beginning.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I did something wrong or I had the same issue in the preseason. It's like if the game started at 4:00, I'm ready to watch the feed starting at 4:00. There's no feed until like 4:03, 4:04. Right. And when the feed becomes available, the game is already 3 or 4 minutes old.
Yes. I had the same thing happen.
Okay.
So it's not just you. I had the same thing happen.
I don't think
that's frustrating.
I think that, yeah, it's very frustrating. And granted, after the game, I went back and watched the first drive on NFL Plus.
Right, but I'm paying $79.99, money that I really don't have, and I'm still paying $79.99 to see this and to get entire games and to get more of a glitch-free experience than what I'm getting on NFL Plus right now. Yeah. The NFL does so many things right, but boy, they're really messing up on this one. They have got to fix this.
I'm hopeful, it's a new product that the bugs are going to take some time to get rid of. Hopefully they fix this. You would think $1 billion industry would have this together, but they don't.
There you go.
And that's why I love it. I've been using it every day, but there's a lot that can still get better. B- after week 1.
Yeah. I'd give it a C+. I'm not as generous as you are, Dave. Because basically I get frustrated. If technology does not do what I want it to do, I get mad.
I get pretty mad too.
All right. You are an inanimate object. All right. You are supposed to do what I ask you to do, what I tell you to do, and you don't do it.
Right.
No. That goes for anything in my house. You are an inanimate object. I have things I want you to do. You better do them. And if I'm paying $79.99 for it, you really better do them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we have a few other segments we want to get to, maybe new segments that we'll have weekly on the show. I do want to mention our sponsor. I haven't brought them up yet today.
Yes, I know.
Today's show brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app and we'll have some Prize Picks for you coming up.
I have some good picks for you.
Yeah, Tom's going to have you set up to make some money this weekend. Use our promo code ASU when you sign up, and that gets you a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. So,
Absolutely.
And again, we'll have some recommendations for you coming up in a few minutes.
Yep.
But I'm going to put Tom on the spot here with some questions. Actually, I don't know if I think I sent you these questions before the show, full disclosure, to the audience. So I'm not really putting Tom on the spot, but I'm going to ask him some questions that he's had about an hour to think about. And let's start with the playoff teams that lost in week 1. 9 playoff teams from last year lost in week 1. I don't know if that's a record, but it sounds like it could be a record. That's a lot.
It could be, yeah, that's a lot.
Playoff teams losing in week 1. And now, in some
cases, we
had
a couple of extra playoff teams going into week 1.
Right. That's true. And you also have some playoff teams playing against other playoff teams. And
right.
Unless you're tying like the Colts and Texans, then somebody's going to lose.
Right.
But Rams, 49ers, Bengals, Patriots, Titans, Packers, Cardinals, Raiders, and Cowboys all lost. All made the playoffs last year and lost. Who should we be most concerned
about? Well, for one thing, the Cowboys, because Dak Prescott is gone and they just don't have a backup quarterback. Well, most teams don't have a backup quarterback, but they especially don't have a backup quarterback. They're going to have a tough time. So, yeah, worry about the Cowboys because anytime you lose your starter, it's rough. The Cardinals, boy, looked terrible against the Chiefs. And you saw what an effective defense can do against the Chiefs when the Chargers took the field against them Thursday night.
It's true.
And, the Chiefs can be beaten. You got to play a perfect game against the Chiefs. A 99-yard pick six is not going to beat, the Kansas City Chiefs.
Right.
The Chargers had a chance to win the game right there, and that's where they lost that game.
Yeah.
So, but the Cardinals just don't look together. And Cliff Kingsbury's on my hot list of coaches, where I think he's got a 3-alarm hot seat going.
Out of 5?
Out of 3.
Out of 3. Oh, wow.
3 out of 3. Yeah. Now, if you go to www.footballfromatoz.com, you can see my hot list. Every week, I'm going to do a hot coaches that are on the hot seat. And Cliff Kingsbury opened the season on the hot seat, and he's still on the hot seat because that was a terrible performance. And I know you're playing the Chiefs, but you're playing them at home, and you're supposed to be a Super Bowl contender. You're presenting yourself as a Super Bowl contender. Boy, they looked far from it last week.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the thing with the Cardinals, too, is we've criticized them for starting out fast and then tanking at the end of seasons the last 2 years. What does this mean when you're starting slow? Does that mean it's, nowhere to go but down like the last 2 seasons? Or is it kind of going to be the reverse, that you're starting slower, but you're going to improve as the season goes? And that would be better for the Cardinals, honestly. But
would be better for the Cardinals, but I don't know. That would break kind of the mold that they've established the last 2 seasons. I don't know if Cliff Kingsbury is that good of a coach. We'll see. I mean, we're going to see as we go along. But right now, again, you just paid your young quarterback a big time money as far as the contract extension. And I know Cliff Kingsbury just got a contract extension too. But guess who's going to get fired if you have another bad season? It's not going to be your rookie quarterback. I guarantee you.
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
They will eat the money on the coach and they will move forward because they have invested in Kyler Murray. He is their man. So if you can't make him look good, if you can't make this team go, you are going to go.
Development, breaking news here on our show. Michael Pittman has been ruled out for tomorrow's game for the Colts against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Michael Pittman accounted for a third of Indianapolis's receiving yards in week 1 against the Texans. He is really their only great
Really their real weapon as far as wide receiver, yes.
Yeah, and he sustained an injury in practice on Wednesday. I believe it was a quad injury. and he is going to be out for tomorrow's game. The Colts have not beaten the Jaguars on the road since 2014, and they're going into this game tomorrow having tied a bad team from last year, and now without their best weapon in the passing game. I think Jonathan Taylor might get 40 touches tomorrow. I would love to have Jonathan Taylor in fantasy tomorrow.
He might. I'm telling you, because that might be the only way the Colts move the ball. No, Ryan really has no weapons to go to through the air, and that's a problem with Ryan being in Indianapolis. They're really considering you just got done with a draft, they had a great wide receiver class, or purportedly a great wide receiver class. You really have no wide receivers going into this season.
Well, they drafted a guy with their first available pick. They didn't have a pick because of the Wentz trade, first round pick because of the Wentz trade, which set them back. I mean, that was a really bad trade looking back. Yeah. They somewhat made up for it by getting picks for Wentz in next year's draft. I think more than likely they're going to get a second round pick because Wentz is going to, if Wentz plays enough snaps, it's going to become a second round pick next year.
Yeah. And
they got Ryan for a third, which was very cheap.
Right.
But they still weren't able to get a real difference maker on wide receiver, a top guy in the first round. Alec Pierce looked real good in training camp, but a rough debut, really rough debut, dropped an touchdown, and he got concussed, and he's out tomorrow as well. So if you consider him the number 2 wide receiver, he's at least the number 3. The Colts don't have their number 1 and their number 3 tomorrow.
Right. Yeah, that's it's a tough situation to see Matt Ryan in, but again, the Colts kind of carrying over from last year, and this Reich went from 1 alarm to 2 alarm on my list after last week.
Yeah, I was bringing up the Pittman thing to see where Reich is now on your head coaching.
Yeah, he does not look good.
Yeah.
So
I mean, all training camp talking about coming out strong and being better at the start of the season, having a fast start, completely did not happen. And I think that is an indictment on Frank Reich. A lot of mistakes, silly mistakes, dropped snaps, dropped passes, penalties, and all of that reflects on Frank Reich.
Yeah. Penalties especially, because I've always looked at penalties as a coaching problem. If you're picking up a lot of penalties, you're not playing discipline, and that goes back to your coaches. So, yeah, penalties is definitely something you could trace back to coaching. So it's a rough thing, and I'm beginning to think Reich, let's see how it plays out throughout the season, but it's going to be rough to see him. If he can't make the playoffs in this season, he's already gone. He's only made the playoffs in 2 out of his 4 seasons. He misses this season, he's going to be out in Indianapolis.
I think it's quite a strong possibility that happens. If that situation comes, then yes, I agree. I got one more question for you, and we got to get to your picks. We're running short on time. What did the Chicago Bears, Miami Dolphins, New York Giants, and Minnesota Vikings have in common this weekend, Tom? This past weekend?
Oh, they all won. All beat playoff teams.
All beat playoff teams and weren't in the playoffs last year.
Right.
So my follow-up question, which team do you like best as a playoff team in 2022? Bears, Dolphins, Giants, or Vikings?
Well, right now, I would say the Giants are in the best position as far as their division. So you're in the NFC East. You just ran into a team whose quarterback just got hurt, probably the favorite in the division. The Eagles are going to be tough, but the Eagles played tough against a Detroit Lions team. And again, the Eagles took their foot off the gas and almost got beat. I like what I saw out of Justin Fields last week. Everybody keeps talking about how it was terrible that Trey Lance had to play in those conditions and that monsoon conditions. And boy, yeah, as I tell you, I was about to drop a lure out in the backyard after the show was over, or after the game was over, because it was pretty deep. But Justin Fields did perform in that in all that slop and all that rain and came through. But it's a tough division for the Bears because the Vikings showed up their first game. I think the Vikings still have a lot of weapons. And Green Bay, do you ever count out Aaron Rodgers as bad as they played last week?
Yeah.
So it's tough to see. I don't know about the Bears yet. Dolphins might be in a good position too. But I want to see Tua put it together for a couple more weeks.
Yeah, I agree. I want to see Tua put together for a couple more weeks. Pantera says Dolphins. We'd love to hear from you guys, more of you guys. Which team do you like the best of the non-playoff teams that beat playoff teams in week 1? Bears, Dolphins, Giants, Vikings. Which playoff teams did you think looked the worst in week 1? If you respond in the next few minutes, we'll get your
I would add the Patriots to that worst list too, because the Patriots, Joe Judge and Matt Patricia, they're trying to split the offensive play calling duties between them. And I don't think it's working, and I don't think it's going to work. And I think the Patriots are in for a bad season. I don't see much good happening for that team this year.
I kind of have the approach that you're taking with the Packers. I don't want to rule out Bill Belichick. I hate questioning anything he does, but I totally agree. I do not understand what they're doing on offense.
Right.
They are in danger of really like hurting Mac Jones and his development.
Yes.
Looked really good as a rookie, should continue to develop as a premier quarterback, potential top 10 quarterback in the league. And but if you have a former defensive coordinator and a former special teams coordinator calling plays for him, and one of the guys is also supposed to be coaching the offensive line, which performed very poorly against Miami.
Yeah,
it's a mess right now.
It's rough.
It's a mess.
So we'll see what happens there. We better get to my picks.
Yes, I did want to say I like the Vikings of that group of 4.
I think the Vikings have a good shot because I think the Vikings, again, they showed it in week 1. They can line up with the Packers.
Yeah.
And play toe-to-toe with the Packers. And that's the team you got to beat in this division. I think the Bears are improving, but the Bears are, and I will say it, the Bears are in rebuild, kind of like the Falcons.
Yes.
All right? The Bears are in rebuild.
They are.
Matt Eberflus did a great job last week adjusting from the first half to the second half, which is something we haven't seen in Chicago for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
A team making solid adjustments from the first half to the second half. The 49ers could have had that game locked up after the first half. They missed a lot of plays.
They should have had it locked up.
And the Bears took advantage of that. Bears came out re-energized in the second half and really made the 49ers look bad. Rain or no rain, they made the 49ers look bad.
Yeah, but I want to see more before I consider the Bears like a contender or something.
Do I.
I want to see more from them. But yeah, it was a good first week, good second half, I should say.
Right.
Bears. Another thing that stuck out for them, and we do have to get to your picks though. Very few penalties for the Bears, and they had a ton of penalties.
Yes.
So, and again, we're talking about it being a reflection of the head coach. That's a positive for Matt Eberflus after his first game.
Yeah, 3 penalties.
Yeah,
the entire game.
Yeah,
that makes a difference. Absolutely.
49ers, I think, had 100 yards of penalties.
No delay of games. No slow getting the plays in. Luke Getsy got the plays in quick. Everything was in a rhythm. It was really good to see. It's something we haven't seen in a while because Matt Nagy, you kind of saw all the weaknesses of Matt Nagy laid out before you by what Matt Eberflus was able to do with this team.
Yeah, absolutely. But let's get to your picks. We got a few against the spread, and then some recommendations for prize picks.
Yeah. Well, against the spread, I got 4 possibilities, and I want to hear. I got the 49ers -9 at the Seahawks because I still have no faith in Geno Smith and the Seahawks. Yeah, they won last week, but I think the 49ers can still play. Their defense is tough, and they're going to come out tough against the Seahawks. Bengals -7 against the Cowboys. Joe Burrow is not going to throw for 4 interceptions again. He had a bad game last year, threw 3 interceptions on 3 straight passes, threw 3 interceptions against the Bears. And just like last year, the Bengals almost won that game.
Right. Yeah. Another good question would have been, which win was more fluky? The Steelers getting 5 takeaways but needing every second of overtime to get a 3-point win against the Bengals, or the Seahawks needing 2 fumbles at the 1-yard line by the Broncos.
Right.
A pretty horrible decision by Nathaniel Hackett to not go for it again. That's a theme of the show today. Not go on 4th down and kick a 64-yard field goal and won by 1.
2 of 42 attempts at 64 plus in NFL history are successful. So 40 misses, 2 hits. We have no time to go into Nathaniel Hackett today.
We'll talk about one of the topics I thought we might get to today was first-year head coaches. We'll table that when we'll have a little bit larger sample size next week, and we'll talk about it.
Yes, we will. Third game is, I'll give you a choice to round out your 3-game parlay. Steelers are getting 2.5 points against the Patriots. I think even without TJ Watt, I think this is still a tough Steelers defense. Mika Fitzpatrick played a hell of a game last week. And I think you're going to see more of that. I think the Steelers can actually win, even with Mitch Trubisky at quarterback.
Yes, you said it. The Steelers can win with Mitch Trubisky at quarterback. Yes.
Barely,
yeah. But you know what? A win's a win.
A win's a win. Yeah, he got the ball to Najee Harris when he had to. Although, unfortunately, from what I heard, Najee Harris is not playing this week. So
I think he is going to play. He is on the injury report, but he's leaning towards playing.
Okay. Or you can take the Vikings +2 against the Eagles. Because as I said, the Eagles won in Detroit, but Detroit did not look particularly good. The Eagles took their foot off the gas, and I think the Eagles are vulnerable. I think the Eagles can be beat. I want to see another week out of Jalen Hurts and see if they can come back and play another strong game. So, either one of those games, you can round out your 3 play. I think are strong. As far as prize picks, and remember, I want to hear what your prize pick selections were, because I want to hear you come back and say, "Hi, Tom, I beat you. I'm better than you." I want you to come back and say, "Tom, hey, you made me some money this last week. That's not bad." Saquon Barkley is at 74.5 yards. Definitely Saquon Barkley. This is a rush-heavy offense. Daniel Jones is still growing as a quarterback, and Dable wants to emphasize the run game because that's what he's got right now. That's the strongest portion of his offense.
Yeah.
So I would say Barkley is definitely a guy you can count on. Nick Chubb, again, another situation where you got a questionable quarterback, but you got an all-world running back. So go ahead and take Nick Chubb at I can't even read my writing. 83.5 yards of rushing yards. Take the over.
I like it.
Because who are Cleveland? Who are they playing this week?
Jets.
Playing the Jets. Yeah, Jets, Jets, right. Yeah. And another one, Darren Waller. Derek Carr kind of fell into the Aaron Rodgers trap where everything had to go to Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
Right? And look for that to change. Look for that to adjust this week. Hunter Renfrow, I recommend it as over 5 catches, over 5 receptions. I don't think he got 5 targets. Darren Waller, 50.5 receiving yards. I'd say take that.
Okay.
And I would say Drake London, 50.5 receiving yards this week against the Rams. Drake London, Mariota likes London. And I would say go ahead and consider Drake London as part of your prize picks package this week.
The one that you have more faith in Derek Carr than I do. I don't know. Because last year I had Darren Waller in fantasy, and he targeted Darren Waller a ton, especially in week 1. And it was great because it's like Darren Waller was being targeted on every other
Right.
pass. And like, that's what you want to see if you have that fantasy guy. But at the same time, it's completely not efficient because it's like he's targeting him 15, 20 times a game and he's only making 10 catches, which is a lot, but it's taking that volume in order for him to come up with 10 catches. And I see the same thing happening this season where he's locked in on only Devontae Adams.
But the problem is he's got Josh McDaniels as a head coach. And I think McDaniels will kind of steer him out of that.
I hope so, because I just think if he's going to progress and be like a quarterback that could win the Super Bowl, you can't just throw to one guy.
Right. No, you can't.
He did eventually throw to Waller a little bit more in the second half of that Chargers game, and they kind of came back in that game, made it competitive. But I just think too much of Devontae Adams, way too much of Devontae Adams early in the game. Got to get Waller and Renfro involved in the first half.
He was tunnel vision towards Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
But again, that's the mistake here. Aaron Rodgers last year against San Francisco would not throw to anybody, would not throw to Lazard. Lazard was free across the middle, and he went deep for Adams, who was double covered.
Yeah.
You know, that'll show you what Aaron Rodgers thought of Adams right there and how you can rely on one receiver too much.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping Josh McDaniels can work him out of that, because this is it. This is the last season for Derek Carr. He doesn't produce this year. I think he's a Super Bowl quarterback. I think he's a bust if he does not produce now.
Oh, wow.
That is it.
And in the show, the hot take.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. Yeah. I do want to get our promo code out there one more time. Use that promo code ASU when you sign up for Prize Picks. Use Tom's recommendations. Hopefully we can make you some money. Or if you have some different picks and you win, let us know next week when you're watching us. We'd love to hear, your success stories on Prize Picks. Download the app, sign up, and get started with our promo code ASU. I do want to start Zozo making an appearance here. I want to start one other tradition on our show here for the regular season. I'm going to end each show with a Super Bowl prediction. And it's kind of like, a fun mocking of all the Super Bowl predictions from the preseason, because I get to make a new prediction every week. And it's going to purposefully not always be the same teams. But
for me.
So I'm just going to, basically what it's going to be is I'm going to name the two teams that I think are best in each conference. The best team in the AFC, best team in the NFC. And my Super Bowl pick going into week 2, Bills and Buccaneers.
Bills and Buccaneers. That's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see,
My Super Bowl pick is Bills against Chicago Bears.
Okay. We'll see how long we stay with those picks.
Yeah.
We're going to make a new one every week.
Yep, absolutely.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll be back next Saturday, 12 p.m. Eastern time.
Yep. Have a great week.